Hello and welcome to today's edition of Extraordinary Outcomes. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink is a new generation tool that takes out friction in the communication and conversation process between the seller and the buyer, making it easy to focus on the problem both are trying to solve. Over 400 companies in 32 countries use PitchLink to buy and sell better. We continue our series of conversations with authors who wrote seminal books on sales that helps us understand the buyer better. Have you ever seen a bad software demo? Meet our guest Peter Cohen, author of the book Great Demo, subject of our discussion today. Peter is the founder of The Second Derivative and Great Demo. He helps software organizations achieve their sales and marketing objectives by making their demos crisp, compelling, and surprisingly effective. He has enjoyed roles in technical and product marketing, marketing management, sales and sales management, and senior management. In his most recent role prior to The Second Derivative, Peter founded a business unit in an organization and grew the business from an empty spreadsheet into a $30 million operation. Peter has experience as an individual contributor, manager, and C-level team member in marketing, sales, and business development. He has also been and continues to be a customer.
Peter, welcome. It is wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
So many bad demos, so little time.
Tell us about it. So before we get into the book, why don't you tell a bit to our audience, tell them about what your work is about and what you're doing currently.
So what I like to do when people ask me, what do I do, is to answer back in the form of a question. Have you ever seen a bad software demonstration? And if the answer is what you're doing, which is to laugh or cry or to say something like, I probably delivered hundreds myself when I know you know why I'm in business. So the purpose of Great Demo and the Great Demo team is to take the practice of demos to a new and frighteningly delightful level. That's what we do.
I know you didn't start your life being a software demo guru. You were somewhere else, but somewhere your life led you to this. What really happened and how did you land here?
So this is funny. So there are two watershed events that took place. The first one was when I was leading a business unit. I had 100 reports or so, and we were buying CRM software. I was the head of the business units, and at that time also responsible for sales and marketing. And we're looking for CRM tools. We brought a series of vendors in to do demos. And I think we had 5 vendors overall. Each asked for a couple of hours with a full team. So if you do the math, there were about 8 of us that were involved. It's a lot of investment. And in each demo, the vendors would start off the beginning of the CRM system and progress linearly through the entire process. So they would start by entering records, they would progress that, they would execute marketing campaigns, and then finally, and here's the real kicker, before they got to the reporting, things like the forecast and the pipeline, which is what I as the head of sales and the head of the organization needed to see, they ran out of time. They said, trust us, our reports are terrific. So I had seen how everything works, but I never had seen what it's going to do to help me solve my business problems. And all of a sudden I had this insight, and I realized, oh my goodness, we have been doing exactly the same thing to our customers. And so after, I think it was the 3rd demo, I got the team together and I said, guys, what did you think about these demos? And they said they were horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we're doing exactly the same thing to our prospects and customers. We need to do the last thing first. We need to take the payoff screens, the payoff deliverables, and instead of holding to the very end where everybody's tired and the high-ranking people are gone, we need to move them right to the front of the demo so that people can see what's in it for them and where this is going. So that was instance number 1, and that's where we actually began to develop the methodology and begin to practice it out. The second event, and how I actually wrote the book, a good colleague of mine, a good friend of mine at that time was leading a software organization, and he had finally organized and secured a demo with Merck, the large pharmaceutical company. And he says, Cohen, we got to prepare for a demo for Merck. Can you take a look at what we're doing? And I said, absolutely. And I was working for another organization at the time. I was still leading this business. And preparing for my meeting with Barry, because that was his name, I drafted some notes. And then I went and saw his demo, and I gave him some feedback. It was a couple hours of discussion. When I came back from that meeting, I thought, oh man, there's a lot of really, really good stuff, and I need to capture this. And I started writing. And I just kept writing. And that was in October of 2002. And by the end of the month, I had actually drafted the first edition of the book. And that's how it came about. It was a gush of all these ideas that had been building up in my tiny little brain over that period of that. It was about a year and a half that we'd been practicing these new ideas. And I suddenly thought, now it's time to codify them. And that's how it happened.
Just to step back, you started writing these notes during this process of helping your friend.
Correct, yes.
But you were sort of observing from the point of when you bought those, you're getting the demos from the CRM guys, till then, this 1.5 years, it was sort of formulating in your brain. Is that how it was happening?
Well, it was both formulating in my brain, but we were also actually applying the ideas. We were trying them out. We had a team around the world. We were selling software and systems, hardware and software, and know-how, patent rights at the time. And we started saying, well, what is it that this person wants out of the system? What is it this job title wants? We realized, okay, we need to parse this by job title, by job title, by job title. And the example was the CRM system, because here I was the head of sales, and what I wanted out of this was forecast and pipeline. That's what I needed. My frontline managers wanted insights into the specific deals that each of their reps were working. The reps said very simply, we just don't want something to get in the way. If we have to enter information, make it as rapid as possible. In fact, one of the first questions I had from my colleague named Kevin was, can I just dictate it into the system and it will put it in? So, and then the marketing people had their own desires, and that's when I realized that this needs to be done on a job title by job title basis. So the methodology was actually getting developed and practiced en route to actually writing the book. The writing the book came at just the right time, where it had really all fallen into place. How to review a customer's situation, how to understand what is the end deliverable that particular prospect might be looking for, how to present it in a way that makes what could seem otherwise complicated to look simple, how to manage questions, and so forth. We had been practicing these ideas. So it wasn't, oh, I'm going to write a book and I hope it's right, which I have seen happen. It was, no, here's a year and a half experience that's now codified, a year and a half of actually applying the methodology. It's codified into the book, which actually draws upon the experiences of a number of people across the organization. The organizations that will claim they have 300 years of experience, well, we probably actually did that we were drawing from. But that's how it all came together.
How did you actually get to this 14-chapter structure? Did you write out that structure first, or did you start writing the concepts and the content?
So the structure was pretty much in my mind. I'd been working on it as we had been practicing these ideas and tuning them up. I'd been making mental notes and physical notes as we went along. The book itself is structured like a great demo. The people that read it through to about chapter 8, well, it's pretty funny. Occasionally somebody will actually email me and say, oh, I get it. you actually practice what you preach. Yeah, the book starts off, the first page offers the payoff. And the idea of, introduce the deliverable for the end result right up in front. And then begin to peel back the layers in accordance with the customer's depth and level of interest. This is the way the book was drafted, and the structure was pretty much already in my mind. I had certain key ideas that we want to communicate. So understanding and reviewing the customer's situation, understanding what the end deliverables are, presenting those end deliverables. By the way, those are two very separate things. I'll give you an example. How many times have you seen somebody present a software screen and they say, "So, isn't that terrific?" And our eyes are going around trying to figure out, what am I looking at here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I'll often tell people in workshops is, on the vendor side, I'll say, "So how many times have you seen that screen?" And they'll say hundreds. And I'll ask them, "Well, how many times has your prospect seen it?" And they'll say, "Well, this is the first time." My comment then is, don't assume they get it. Don't assume they understand what they're looking at. You've got to take their eyes to exactly what you want them to see. And if you're face to face, that's a matter of physical pointing. If you're over the web, that's a matter of using the tools in Zoom or Skype or whatsoever to annotate or draw their attention to it and communicate what they're seeing, how it's going to help solve their business problems, and the business value associated with making the change. So it was elements like that that I already had in my mind, we've been practicing, that I just needed to codify. So things like fewest number of clicks, peeling back the layers, how to manage and park questions. These were all things that we had been practicing and developed it. So it was a bit of a gush.
So let's get to the core of your book. What is a great demo?
What is a great demo? A great demo presents exactly what the customer needs to see. No more, no less. That's a great demo. And to develop that out just a little bit further, if you're talking to a C-level person, that demo might be 6 minutes long. That's it. A few key dashboards, a key report, that may be all that person needs to see. If you're talking to a middle manager, that might be a 20-minute demo. Middle manager wants to see dashboards and reports, but they also need to assign actions and manage processes. So that might be a little bit longer. A great demo for the staff member might be an hour, might be 2 hours, because they're actually executing the workflows. They need to see not only what is this tool going to do to help them solve their problems, but then how am I going to use it on a day-to-day basis? So a great demo, to recap, shows exactly what is needed for that specific job title, no more, no less.
Which also means that somebody who is focused on giving a great demo theoretically cannot give demos to multiple levels in the same session.
So yes, you can. It's a matter of organizing and managing the meeting. So if we had those three job titles or 3 levels, we've got execs, middle managers, and staffers, and they're all in the same room, that's fine. You set expectations via an agenda that says, we're going to deal with our executives first, then the middle managers, and then we're going to go on to staffers. And by the way, if there's a system administrator in the room, we'll deal with his or her questions at the end. So that you chunk things up, you break things up into consumable components, in this case initially mapped to job title, as you go through that process. So you can actually manage those situations.
And I would presume that demos fail because they don't do this.
So demos fail for 100 reasons. Most people tend to focus initially on technology. Frankly, that's not the reason that demos fail. People are willing to forgive blemishes and bugs they expected in software. Where demos fail, first and foremost, is through a lack of discovery. Lack of discovery. If you were a doctor and a patient comes into your office and you offer a prescription without ever examining the patient and coming to a diagnostic conclusion, that in the world of medicine has a name. It's called malpractice. and I would suggest the same thing is true in the world of software demos. If you have a CRM system is the perfect example. If you present that same end-to-end demo of a CRM system to every job title, that's software business malpractice. You're basically, it's the equivalent of telling your customer to go down to the pharmacy and try one of every pill that's on the shelf and then report back what appeared to work.
Hmm.
So discovery is the essence. And one of the things we teach in great demo workshops and what is laid out in the book is not just discovery to ask a pile of questions, but discovery with a purpose, a structure to enable you to understand and capture and thus react to and address the key elements of information that you need as a vendor to put together and deliver a credible demo. And equally, that your prospect needs to have been asked so that they feel that you are able to put together and deliver a successful demo to them. Interestingly enough, prospects want to be discovered. Let me say that again, but slightly differently. Earnest prospects, prospects who are actually interested in solving their business problems, want to be discovered. And that's a principle that I think many software organizations don't understand or are afraid of. So number one issue is insufficient discovery for demos. And we could talk a little bit about vision generation demos versus technical proof, because there are many people in organizations who really only visualize a single type of demo. Let me show you the demo, or even worse, let me show you the deep dive demo. And there's a purpose for at least two, in fact, today, three different types of demos that should be understood.
So would you like to go into that?
Sure. So let's talk about vision generation versus technical proof. Vision generation demos, very simply, let's draw an analogy. If you go into a restaurant and you sit down at the table, and the waiter comes over to you and never offers you a menu and never asks you what you're interested in, and simply guesses. So he goes into the kitchen, he comes out, he brings you a beautiful steak, and you say, great, but I'm a vegetarian. So he takes it away. And now he brings out this beautiful vegetarian dish, and you say, but great, I'm not a fan of okra. Repeat 100 times. That is a traditional overview demo. Stop me if you see anything that looks interesting. So the challenge with the traditional overview demo is that it's way too much. And if we go back to our restaurant analogy, if the waiter was able to come out and offer you just a sample, just an appetizer for you to say, okay, yeah, that's really interesting. Do you have anything more like that? That's what a vision generation demo is. And the fundamental structure is very simple. It's, let me share with you, says the vendor, how we've helped other customers that might be in similar situations to you. And you actually review an example situation, and you ask the question, how does this compare? Customer says, well, it's quite similar. And you talk for a few minutes, literally a few minutes. And then the vendor says, well, I have a lot more questions, but would you like an example or two, an appetizer, of how some of our other customers have been applying our tools to solve the problems? Customer says, or prospect says, yes, please. You share one or two or three key screens that map to the deliverables for those scenarios. Describe what the prospect is seeing, talk about the problems that it solves and the value that is enjoyed by other customers. You ask, is that the kind of thing that you have in mind or might look interesting? Prospect says, yeah, it looks very interesting. You say, terrific. Now let's go into effectively a discovery conversation so we can then put together a demo that actually maps to your specific situation. So vision generation, people should think of a vision generation demo as perhaps literally 6 minutes, 4 to 6 minutes of actual demo discussion. The whole rest of it is actually a method of moving comfortably and mutually into a discovery conversation. So vision generation is designed to enable two things to take place. Number one, to satisfy the prospect's desire to get a sense of what is possible, the art of the possible. And number two, then, to move both parties comfortably into a discovery conversation.
Let's move to the technical demo bit. So we covered the vision, which sort of encompasses the discovery process.
Mm-hmm.
What is the technical demo according to you?
Yeah, the technical proof demo is number one, it's understanding and making sure you understand exactly the customer's situation. So what overarching business problems are they looking to solve? What specific problems are they facing that's keeping them to achieve those goals or objectives? What specific capabilities they're looking for out of the software, the value, the timing, and a few other things. But it's that middle bit, the specific capabilities they're looking for, that is one of the key elements of discovery. And therefore, once you understand which capabilities they need to see, what deliverables they're looking for out of your offering, that's when you put together a technical proof demo. And the technical proof demos are designed, again, you're focusing on an individual job title, their situation. You then show the end deliverables they are looking for, that person is looking for. So for example, in the CRM system, if it was me as the head of sales, I want to see the pipeline and forecast reports. That's what I want to see. And I might want to be able to drill down and explore them to some degree. But fundamentally, I just want to know where's the business right now and what can I expect as we look out 2 or 3 or 4 quarters. So number one, reviewing the situation to make sure that things haven't changed and you understood it correctly. Number two, you're presenting those end deliverables right up front and confirming that this is what your prospect wants to see and is interested in. Number three, if the prospect would like to see how you actually get to those, that's where you go into the live software and I love to ask people to do this. They say, put your hand up like this with your thumb outstretched and say the following words, fewest number of clicks. So let's do it together. Ready? Fewest number of clicks. Right. And what we're trying to help people understand is that prospects as users want to accomplish what they need to do in the software without any additional effort. Every click you add, every if statement or option that you share is taking the simple and making it look complicated. So we teach the opposite, fewest number of clicks to execute any particular pathway. Customer says, wow, that looked really easy. They look thoughtful. They begin to ask questions. Can it do this? Can it do this other thing? How do I set this up? That's the next section where you are literally peeling back the layers, but in a two-way bidirectional conversation with the prospect. So the delightful thing about this is it is a conversation. Customer is basically taking you and them as deep as they have interest. And I love to use newspapers and news presented. Remember newspapers? and news presented on the web as an analogy. Because if you look at any news article in a newspaper or on the web, it follows what journalists call inverted pyramid structure, which means you put the most important stuff right at the top, the headline, and then the first paragraph is the crisp summary. That's like the first pass through software. And then as readers, we read as deep as we have interest. And when we get to that level of detail that's no longer interesting, we move to the next article. And that's the way we teach people to structure demos. Let the customer indicate how deep they want to go, as opposed to, hey, let me show you another way of doing that same thing and how you set that up. And if and or and if and or and if and or. So that's one of the key ideas. Fewest number of clicks, and let the customer determine, let the prospect determine how deep they want to go. So that's technical proof. Yeah. So the hierarchy effectively is vision generation, discovery, technical proof.
You wrote a chapter on remote demonstration. And as they say, it's all remote demonstration today. So
absolutely,
how do you see the concepts? I can pretty much understand how they will all translate into remote pretty much seamlessly, but it has its challenges. I mean, there's a challenge of having somebody in front and sort of trying to get feedback and so on, vis-a-vis when you're doing it like thousands of miles away.
So it's all about driving interactivity. And when people are and return to demoing face to face, some of the same principles actually apply. But let's talk specifically about remote demos or virtual demos. And 99% of virtual demos begin with the phrase, "Can you see my screen?"
Yes.
followed by the phrase, "And please stop me if you have any questions. We want to make this interactive." But the reality is, and here's the scary thing, because of the way that traditional demos are constructed, what's often going through the vendor's mind, the person that's doing the demo, is, "Please don't ask me any questions because I won't be able to get through all the content that I need to squeeze into this hour."
Right.
And the end result is talk, 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 click, 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 talk and click, talk and click. And then after 8 or 10 minutes, you hear, "So, are there any questions so far?" And what do you typically hear from the audience at that point?
Nothing.
Crickets in an empty room, or "Nope, we're good."
Yeah.
And they go on again for another 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Remote demos, virtual demos, suffer badly from a lack of interactivity.
Yeah.
And what we teach in Great Demo Methodology, the book outlines, but you've actually got to practice it, is how to drive interactivity right from the very beginning. So through little subtle small things, like as opposed to "Can you see my screen?" we suggest, take your mouse, move it to the upper left-hand corner of your screen and ask, "Can you see my mouse in the upper left-hand corner?" Prospect says, "Yes, I can." You move your mouse down to the bottom right corner, ask again, "Can you see my mouse down at the bottom?" "Yep, see it there." "How's the sound of my voice?" "Sounds pretty good." What you're doing here at the very beginning is you're beginning to train your customer in a call and response mode. And as you go through your demo, as opposed to talking for 8 or 10 or God help you longer minutes and then asking any questions so far, and they wake up, "Oh my God, they asked me something." Instead, think in terms of every 76 seconds on average. Every 76 seconds, there should be a switch in speakers between you, the vendor, and a question or comment from your prospect. And so you have to give them the opportunity to ask questions. By the way, subtlety. Number one, when somebody asks, "Does that make sense?" This is a pet peeve for many people today. There really is only one answer. So when the vendor asks, "Does that make sense?" the prospect's thinking, "Well, if I say no, I'm going to look like an idiot." So the prospect says yes, but they may or may not meet it, if you will. When the vendor asks, "So any questions so far?" that also presupposes that that's the only possible form of response. So what I try to teach people to say or to ask as they break after a chunk or segment is they do a summary and then they ask questions, comments, observations, for example. So you open it up more broadly. That way somebody could ask a question, but they could also say, "Oh yeah, that looks much better than what we're doing today." Great. That's the kind of feedback I'd love to hear. Similarly, what's your impression of what we just showed you? So ask a question that actually drives a response. Think in terms of, on average, every minute and quarter, 76 seconds, there should be a speaker switch between the vendor and the prospect.
Yeah.
By the way, one of the single most useful tools operating over the web is a webcam.
Yeah.
And when prospects join a meeting and their webcams are off, I gently but firmly ask them to turn them on. And I will often offer that if this was a face-to-face meeting, you wouldn't walk into a conference room with a bag over your head.
Right.
No,
Absolutely.
let's meet one another just as if we would person to person. That's part of the communication. So you can read body language, you can see if they're paying attention and so forth.
Yeah.
I'll add to this. I did an article called the Zoom Scan about a year ago now. And the Zoom Scan, what I'm referring to, when you're face-to-face doing a demo in the front of the room, we scan the audience for comprehension, for wakefulness, for questions that are appearing on somebody's forehead. So we're using a part of our mental bandwidth to track and assess what's going on in that face-to-face room. over Zoom or whatever tool we're using, we need to translate that same scan to what is in front of us on our computer screen. So, for example, scanning the webcams, scanning what you're showing, making sure there's not something in chat or Q&A, using the annotation tools. This is part of the scan that we need to actually apply when we're operating over the web. So those are a few tips, at least, for virtual and remote demos.
One question I have is that do you find any way to do the discovery in an asynchronous manner, and is that effective?
Yes, and sometimes
Yeah.
I can tell you what is not effective, and in fact is annoying to the prospect, and that's to send them a detailed questionnaire. Now, caveat: if a prospect has actually sent out an RFP, that is the detailed questionnaire, if you will, in reverse. So let's take that off the table for now, if you will.
Yes.
But sending a prospect a questionnaire of questions that you should be asking in a conversational manner, that's unacceptable. However, tools like Consensus, and there's some other tools that are appearing as well, to provide the opportunity for the prospect to actually choose their own adventure, if you will, provide the prospect with value. They're getting vision generation demos, is what they're seeing. The vendor at the same time is gaining very, very valuable information on which job titles, what did those job titles look at, what did they rank as important or less important or not important at all, how long did they watch a segment, did they watch them all the way through, did they watch them again, did they forward this on to somebody else that might be another member of the buying committee. This is how you can begin to enable discovery to take place in an automated fashion. It does not replace the conversation, particularly for complex, high-value offerings, but it certainly starts a conversation, and it moves the process forward for both parties, the vendor and the prospect. Big fan of these tools, by the way.
Peter, that was great, and I think we spoke as much about the book as about what's inside the book and what led us to the book, and what I think will keep the book relevant for a long, long time. I mean, I think it's just the beginning of a scenario where there'll be more softwares and there'll be more terrible demos, and people will have to adjust to what is the right path. And I mean, having said that, this may not be the only path, but this is definitely one of the paths to get it right.
Absolutely. I'll comment two things.
Sure.
Sort of help wrap up. Number one, great demo methodology is not incremental change. It's not small tips to make your demos incrementally better. It actually represents a step change in a different way of doing things from traditional. And that means for some people some significant unlearning and the relearning. It's very frankly, it's like the step change between a society that's based on horse transportation versus moving to the automobile, or from automobile to airplanes. You're still going from place A to B, but it's a different way of executing those processes. So that's something to contemplate. It does require some, and I hate to say this, thinking. But here's the second thing, and it's hugely important. The organization called Gong.io, did a study a few years ago where initially they reviewed 67,149 recorded demos done over the web and uncovered key success factors that 100% validated great demo methodology. In fact, I did not know this study was underway until it was published. In the study, they actually said in their report, Peter Cohan, in his book, Great Demo Was Right, do the last thing first. They validated the do the last thing first. They validated doing discovery. What a shock. They validated making it a conversation. They validated breaking things up into chunks. They validated inverted pyramid. It's a validated methodology. So it's one thing to know in your heart that a way of doing things is better. It's quite something entirely different and refreshing to have it validated by what was at the time 67,000 data points and is now upwards of 3 million. So there you go.
Wonderful. That's a great way, a great place to conclude this session. And I have a sense that we will be having a few more in the days coming.
I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Peter.
We speak today with Park Howell, known as the world's most industrious storyteller, about his new book, Brand Bewitchery: How to Build the Story Cycle System to Craft Spellbinding Stories for Your Brand.
And what I've seen has changed in now almost 20 years is where brands used to own the influence of mass media. The masses are now the media, and they own your story, they own my story, they own your listener's story. And it's really hard to cut through that noise out there. And that launched me into my next career of finding a way to hack through the noise and hook the hearts of your customers. Well, I think that stories scale. And what I mean by that is when a brand can tell a very powerful story that captivates a small audience at first, that audience becomes your megaphone. And they start resharing your story with the world, which leads to the most powerful form of advertising and marketing there is, and that's word of mouth marketing, which is absolutely free.
Check out the attachments in this show. You can check out the EXO newsletter, sign up for Pitchling, and details of shows on the Sales Experts channel. We will continue to explore the B2B conversion problem through additional episodes in this series. You can still share what you think about this elephant in the sales room. Please use the link below, also available in the attachments, to record your views in video, and we will continue to showcase them in our upcoming episodes. Let us listen in to today's viewer response.
Hi, I'm Hari, and I run marketing at a high-end product engineering firm called Ideas to IT Technologies. The less than 5% conversion rate is just a symptom. I think we should be looking at the cause. So what makes a B2B company successful? You either need to offer something innovative or say what you offer in a memorable manner. And this is exactly what all successful companies do. They go to great lengths to discover an unsolved problem in the market, and they make it their mission to solve it. After that, they courageously compare themselves with their competitors to arrive at a marketing position that they can own. The final step is communicating this to the market so that customers know who they are and what is it exactly that they do. This is a time-tested process, and there's simply no substitute to this. In the late 90s and early 2000s, many companies began skipping this whole process. They neither had a differentiator in what they offered or in how they communicated it. So the last resort? Contextual paid advertising, so that their ads would turn up when someone looked for something in search engines. If you're one of the few advertisers, you could still rank up some few leads. But what if you're one among 100 advertisers? Or what if you're one among 1,000 advertisers, offering a product or service with no unique answer as to why a client should come to you? This is exactly what is happening today. Clients who are looking for products or services are in for an information overload. They visit typically about a dozen sites they see on Google, and they fill up contact forms on all these sites. The decision on whom to work with comes much later, during discovery calls and pre-sales interactions, and not at the time they visit your website. You know why? Because all the companies are saying the same thing. If you would like to solve this problem, you shouldn't be afraid to go back to the drawing board. Identify the problem that only you could solve, or you could solve better than anybody else. Make that your mission. And more importantly, communicate it proactively to the market. If you do this right, your clients will come. Thank you for having me here. It was great talking to you.
Time to wrap up for today. Remember, you will soon have access to the complete interviews and transcripts in the series. Keep an eye out for the link in the EXO newsletter. And thank you for watching. Until next time, stay well and craft extraordinary outcomes.